Looking at what you have currently, there's every possibility that you think you do not have enough. As far as human wants are concerned, they can never be satisfied, and that is why you see almost everyone struggling to get more, whether rich, poor, or middle class. The Bible says that there is time for everything and a purpose for every season on the earth. There will be a time of abundance and a time of little. It is just a normal part of life. We see this in the land of Egypt during the time of Joseph. There were 7 years of abundance, after which there were 7 years of famine. The same thing happens in our lives as individuals. There would be a time when you have enough to spare, and there will be times when you experience scarcity. When you look at your present state, you might be tempted to just give up because there is almost nothing on ground. Despite this, the Bible assures us that God has made provision for all that we need. According to Hebrews 4 verse 3, all the works of God has been finished from the foundation of the world. Even when there's little, the Lord will multiply the little you have to bring you to a state of abundance. First, you must not despise the little the Lord has given unto you. Do not see it as nothing. If God has given it to you, then there is a purpose for every of His provisions. You have to start looking beyond that little and see the abundance that God can make out of that little. The widow of Zarephath was about to cook her last meal when God sent the prophet Elijah to her. It felt like nothing, since it was the last and only meal. But little did she know that God was going to make an abundance available out of that little that would sustain them all through the period of famine. The widow of the sons of the prophet was also in debt and needed to have the debt repaid or have her 2 sons taken into slavery. When asked what she had, see her reply in 2 Kings 4 verse 2. Elisha said to her, "What shall I do for you? Tell me, what have you of sale value in the house?" She said, "Your handmaid has nothing in the house except a jar of oil." She considered the jar of oil to be nothing because it felt so small in comparison to the debt that was before her. In the New Testament too, when Jesus had taught the people in the wilderness for 3 days, He was unwilling to send them away without food and told the disciples to make provision. To them, it felt like an impossible task to achieve. How were they able to feed so much crowd? The men alone were about 5,000, with just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Yet Jesus told them to get the people seated. So what is it that you have in your hands currently? What is that little thing that God has given to you? It might be some money that looks insignificant right now. It might be a gift that has not been put to proper use. It might also be your relationship, connection, or association. Do not despise these little things because they are the key to your wealth and abundance. Secondly, you should learn to be industrious and follow instructions. The little you have will only multiply when you put it to the right use. Looking at the story of the talents, a man was going on a journey and called his servants, handing to them 5, 2, and 1 talent respectively. The first 2 used their talents wisely, and it became multiplied, while the last one went to hide his talent in the ground until the return of his master. There are several lessons to be learned from this story, but 2 of them will be pointed out here. One is that you should not compare yourself to other people. The master in his story gave to those servants according to their abilities. The little God has given you might not be the same as the little He has given your neighbor or people around you. He gives according to the measure of grace upon each person's life. So, avoid unnecessary comparison and instead focus on what God has given unto you. The other thing is to make good use of what He has put into your hands. If you have gifts and talents, use them wisely. The more you make use of it, the better you become, and these are the things that will pave your way to success. Proverbs 18 verse 16 says, "A man's gift maketh room for him, and bringeth him before great men." Also Proverbs 22 verse 29 says, "Do you see a man diligent and skillful in this business? He will stand before kings, he will not stand before obscure men." If you want to experience multiplication, make use of that little that God has given you. Within that little is the ability to produce more. Putting that little to good use might mean giving it out. Take the widow of Zarephath, for instance. Elijah asked her to prepare the last meal she would have made for herself and her son and give it to him instead. She could have resisted or refused, but she went ahead and did as God's prophet had said. In the case of the widow, she was asked to borrow jars of oil and keep pouring. It was not logical or rational, but she did, and the oil multiplied. As you obey all of God's instructions for your life, God will bring about multiplication in your life, finances, family, career, and everything that concerns your life. Moreover, you need to put your faith to work if you will see God multiplying things in your life. It takes faith to bring the impossible to the realm of possibilities. When Jesus was about to feed the multitude, he looked up to heaven and blessed the little they had, giving thanks to the Father. Then he asked the disciples to get the people seated and distributed the food. In the end, after the people had eaten to their satisfaction, they still had more than enough and picked up 12 baskets. Jesus had no doubt whatsoever that the food would be multiplied. Even when he was asking Philip what to do, the Bible recorded that he already knew what he would do. He had faith enough in his Father and just went ahead in the strength of the knowledge that God can and will make provision. Hebrews 11 verse 6 tells us that whoever comes to God must believe that he is, and he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Start putting your faith to work and see how things turn out for your good. Launch out into the deep and you will harvest 1,000 fish, even beyond your expectations. God has given us the mandate to multiply and replenish the earth. So you have all it takes to bring about and to experience multiplication in your life. That little will become plenty. Just put your trust in God. Look beyond material things. There is more to life than just money and riches. The little God has given you may be spiritual things. It could be your faith, could be your talents, and could be your patience. All those little things are part of what God has given you that could be multiplied to make provision for other things that you need. So do not neglect those things. See what Jesus told his disciples in Matthew 17, verse 20. He said to them, because of the littleness of your faith, that is, your lack of firmly relying trust. For truly I say to you, if you have faith that is living like a grain of mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to yonder place, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible to you. That little faith you have is all you need to command things to be in place. Through your little faith, you can command mountains to be moved and make the impossible possible. The little God has given you is like a seed, which when planted with the right conditions will yield fruits in multiple folds. Within every seed is the potential to become a forest. That little that God has given you is a seed. He is the one that gives seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Do not neglect or ignore that which you have in your hands, no matter how little it looks. God will cause it to multiply. It might not be the way you are thinking it would come, because God works in mysterious ways, but it will surely happen. Your barns will be filled with so much, and you will have more than enough. You will experience multiplication in all aspects of your life. You will have so much that people will not help but notice God's goodness in your life. From where there has been nothing, there will be so much, an abundance. God's blessings will follow you and overtake you, just as the scriptures have said. You will be loaded with great benefits daily. Your jar of oil will not run dry, and your bag of flour will not run out. You will see them growing and multiplying, even if you cannot see the source. Just wait on God, obey instructions, and watch the little you have grow in multiple folds. You will testify of God's goodness and faithfulness in your life.